morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a look at Weepinbell. Just Weepinbell. We're not talking about Victorybell. In fact, Victorybell has not been revealed. We have absolutely no idea what it is that Victorybell does. We assume there's going to be a Victorybell in the set because they don't usually do incomplete evolution lines, occasionally for weird reasons. But, yeah. It's a little bit weird, right? There must be something pretty good about this Weepinbell. And there is. Now, it's not the HP of 80 because the HP of 80 is not terribly special. For an evolving stage 1, it's about what we expect, but it's still a bit rubbish. We've got a retreat cost here of 2, which does mean free retreat with air balloon for what that's worth. And we do have a weakness to fire, which isn't terribly relevant. We are terrible HP. But then again, all those fire decks are playing Volcanion at the moment, and just a welder onto a Volcanion, such that they only have 2 energy on and no other energy on the field, means a Volcanion hits 50 damage, which will actually be enough to get a KO. So the weakness could legitimately be relevant. As a grass Pokemon, you're really not hitting anything that good for weakness, and you're not really able to take advantage of that many tricks. Actually, no, that's a lie. Turffield Stadium. Turffield Stadium will let you search out this Victorybell, and I like that quite a lot indeed. So there we go. There's a trick you can use. What does it actually do, though? It's all about the ability. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may use this ability. If you do, your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned and burned. Yes. If you're trying to work along the lines of a special condition deck, and may I suggest you potentially do so, I like this very, very much indeed. Poison will put 1 damage counter on between turns. Burn with the new rules will put 2 damage counters on between turns. And then you flip a coin. And if heads, you're no longer burned, but you've still taken those 2 damage counters. At the absolute minimum, your opponent is taking 3 damage counters here. And 3 damage counters is the same as if you evolved up into Crobat from Phantom Forces back in the day. And that Crobat saw a bunch of play. Now, to be fair, we also had the Golbat that would put 2 damage counters on when you evolved into it. But that's not the point. The point is, this is a really nice ability. At its base, you're doing 3 damage. That's just the base, not anything else. We'll get to all the others in a minute. But just in terms of the basics here, you're doing 3 damage. 3 damage is good. But it kind of keeps getting better. I mean, if we want to focus on the poison for a moment, let's not forget that we've got Toxicroak. And Toxicroak will put an extra 2 damage counters on between turns. So now all of a sudden it's not 1 for poison, it's 3. Add the 2 for burn is 5. So when you evolve up into Weepinbell here, you're dropping 5 damage. And that's 1 Toxicroak. You can have multiple Toxicroak. Although, to be clear, right, at some point, you've got to actually get an attacker down. You cannot just go, I'll have lots of Toxicroak and Weepinbell. Sooner or later, you've got to do something else here. You've got to have something a little bit more. Otherwise, things will start going a little bit wrong. Okay, fine, makes sense to me. But it is important to note that you can build up this damage quite nicely. It's not really building up damage, but at this stage I'd feel a little bit bad if I did not at least mention Dust Island. Dust Island is that really fun one that says if your opponent switches a poisoned active Pokemon with one of their benched, they are still poisoned and poisoned to the same degree. So if you put extra poison on, they will still have that extra poison, which sounds pretty good to me. That is one that you absolutely should bear in mind. One that is a little bit sad, unfortunately, that we have lost is Weller Volcano Park. Weller Volcano Park is a really nice stadium that says that if your opponent flips heads for burn, they're still burned, which is hilarious and clearly not going to work, unfortunately, because it's rotated out and we can be a little bit sad about it, or we can get on with our lives. I know what I want to do. And just until we hit the rotation again, we have also got the Muck from Team Up. And Muck from Team Up's got that nice ability that says if your opponent evolves or devolves, they don't get rid of poison. I don't think in a deck like this, I'll put it this way, any stage 1 Muck on the bench, I would rather is just a stage 1 Toxicroak. I would rather be having that extra damage coming down from poison than the Muck. So, hey-ho. I do wish we still had Weller Volcano Park, but hey-ho, you can't have everything. So essentially what we've got is the 20 damage from Burn, which may or may not stick around depending on if your opponent flicks heads. And we've got the 10 damage minimum from Poison that we can build up using Toxicroak, which sounds pretty good to me. And this works on the bench. It's not like you've got to have some kind of, if it's in the active, no. Works on the bench just fine. And of course, at this stage, we need to remember that Scoop Up Net is a thing. Scoop Up Net will essentially let you pick up one of your non-GX, non-V Pokemon. So here, you should have multiple uses. You know, if you play, say, a 2-2 line of this with 4 Scoop Up Net, that should give you 6 activations of this ability during the game, which means that there are going to be 6 turns where your opponent is poisoned and burned. And bearing in mind, right, if they stay in the active, they're going to stay poisoned. If they flip tails on burn, they're going to stay burned. It's not like this is a one-turn thing. It's not like you have to get this every single turn. You can keep doing it every turn if they keep switching out if they need to, but don't necessarily need to. One other stadium I do need to mention here is Galamine. Galamine increases the retreat cost of every active Pokemon by 2. And essentially what this means is that your opponent has to find a switching card. They cannot just rely on being able to retreat out of it. Galamine hopefully will increase their retreat to the point they can't just retreat. They've got to find some kind of switching card, which means it's more likely they're going to stick with these special conditions. And the thing is, when we're talking about a Pokemon that sits on the bench using this ability, can free retreat with Air Balloon and doesn't need any kind of energy, this can fit into any deck. Where there are some specifics, we'll get there in a second, but this will just fit into any deck to do extra damage. Anytime you've got a deck and you are worried that you're not quite hitting enough damage, you can play a Weepinbell line. There are a bunch of decks at the moment that are playing Galarian Zigzagoon, and they're playing the Mewtwo from Unbroken Bond, and they're playing the Giratina from Unified Minds, and they're playing Jirachi from Team Up, and they all have different abilities that do different things, but the one thing that all of those cards have in common is that they want to use Scoop Up Net. So if you're playing Scoop Up Net anyway, and you can make space in your deck, and you can make space on your bench, in comes Weepinbell. And this 30 damage is a lot better than Galarian Zigzagoon's 10. Although do bear in mind Galarian Zigzagoon will do 10 to the bench, not just to the active, whereas this has to hit the active. So there is a strong argument that Galarian Zigzagoon will still see a lot, and it's a basic, of course, so there are reasons why Galarian Zigzagoon is still better, but I think that this Weepinbell absolutely could work. There are specific uses, etc., but actually the best thing about Weepinbell here is you're just dropping 30 damage. And it might be more if they stay in the active, if they flip tails, etc., blah, 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 if you're playing Toxicroak. But at its base, you poison and burn them, they take 30 damage. That's actually pretty huge. Now, in terms of more specific uses, this actually brings me to Victreebel. Now, we don't know what the Victreebel from Battle Styles does, but we absolutely do know what the Victreebel from Unbroken Bonds does, and what it does for a single grass energy. 60 damage, well, 10 damage base, plus 60 for each special condition affecting your opponent's active Pokemon. So this will essentially put 2 special conditions on, which puts Victreebel at 130, plus the poison damage, plus the burn damage, plus if you want to use, I don't know, Yell Horn for confusion, etc. And actually, if you want to play this Victreebel, then all of a sudden this Weepinbell I'm showing you here is awesome! Incidentally, there is another Pokemon with the same attack we could use. That is, and it's going to rotate out soon, as in, well, in like 6 months, as is the Victreebel. But we are talking about the Alolan Grimer that came around in Team Up, that for 2 colorless energy, but let's not forget Twin Energy will pay it nice and easily, does 20 damage, plus 50 for each special condition affecting your opponent's active Pokemon. So, less than Victreebel, but, you know, basic rather than stage 2. Also, if there's only 1 special condition, they actually do the same, for what it's worth. I don't know if Victreebel is all of a sudden going to become amazing with Weepinbell. I rather suspect it's not. But using this as a tech to do extra damage in a bunch of decks, especially given that you can reuse it with Scoop Up Net, oh my goodness, yes. And do remember that there is another Victreebel yet to see. Now, I do at this stage need... Now, this is something that I noticed, but the lovely Antoine Boulet has also noticed. They were wise not making it a dark type. Why were they wise not making it a dark type? Remember that Weepinbell is part poison type in the Pokemon, well, the Mythos game, whatever you want to call it. So if it came through as a poison type, it would be darkness in the TCG. And if it were a darkness type, it would fit perfectly into an Eternatus deck, which would arguably be a little bit too good. Remember, they play Galarian Zigzagoon and Scoop Up Net anyway. So this would be amazing in an Eternatus deck as a darkness type, maybe better than we would like it to be. So it probably is for the best that they kept it as a grass type. I'm going to go ahead and give this 4 Wassies. I think this is a really good card. I think there is an awful lot to like about this, and I think the old Victreebel all of a sudden becomes a way better card because of it, but I don't think that all of a sudden that is the only use for it. I think there are going to be plenty of decks that are going to sit there and go, well, you know what? An extra 30 damage, maybe more. Yeah, I could totally use that. That sounds pretty good to me. And those kind of decks, they're going to like this, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to like it very much indeed. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.